The Warrior Queen and the Conqueror. Chapter 1. The sun dipped low on the Scythian horizon, casting long shadows across the vast, untamed landscape. Alexander stood at the edge of his camp, his eyes scanning the barren expanse before him. The recent victory still thrummed through his veins, but a new excitement now quickened his pulse. A messenger had arrived, breathless and wide-eyed, with news that set the camp abuzz. The Amazon queen, Thalestris, approached with her warriors. Alexander's mind raced with possibilities. He'd heard tales of these women since childhood, fierce, independent, living without men. Now, they were coming to him. What could it mean? Your Majesty, Hephaestion's voice cut through his thoughts. The men are restless. These Amazons, they are not to be trusted. Alexander turned to his closest friend and confidant. And yet, they come to us. Think of it, Hephaestion. No Greek has ever truly met these women. This could be a chance to expand our influence, to bring their strength into our fold. Hephaestion frowned. Or it could be a trap. We know nothing of their true intentions. Then we shall discover them. He strode back into the camp, aware of the nervous energy rippling through his men. Whispers and speculation filled the air. They say the Amazons cut off one breast to better draw their bows, one soldier muttered. I heard they kill any male children, another added. Alexander let the rumors wash over him. He'd long learned to sift truth from fantasy, and these tales reeked of exaggeration. Still, the mystery intrigued him. What kind of leader was this Thalestris? What did she hope to gain from this meeting? As night fell, Alexander retreated to his tent. He pored over maps, tracing the vast territories he'd already conquered. But his mind kept drifting to the approaching Amazons. If he could ally with them, bring them into his empire, what a tale that would make. It would be another jewel in his crown of achievements, another step towards immortality. He closed his eyes, imagining how history would remember this moment. Alexander, they would say, who not only conquered nations, but won the loyalty of the mythical Amazons themselves. A cool breeze rustled the tent flaps, carrying with it the scent of the wild Scythian plains. Tomorrow, he would face this Amazon queen. Tomorrow, he would add another chapter to his legend. Chapter 2. The horizon shimmered with the approaching dust cloud, growing larger by the moment. Alexander's men fell silent, their eyes fixed on the spectacle unfolding before them. From the haze emerged a sight that would be etched in their memories forever. The Amazons rode in perfect formation, their horses moving as one entity. Sunlight glinted off polished armor and sharpened blades, creating a dazzling display of martial prowess. The women sat tall in their saddles, faces set with determination and pride. At their head rode a figure that commanded instant attention. Queen Thalestris cut an imposing figure, her armor a masterful blend of function and form. It hugged her curves while offering ample protection, adorned with intricate designs that spoke of her royal status. Alexander felt his breath catch in his throat. He'd seen many leaders in his time, but none quite like this. Thalestris exuded an aura of raw power tempered by regal grace. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, locked onto his as she approached. The Macedonian king stepped forward, his own armor glinting in the sun. He raised a hand in greeting, his voice carrying across the field. Queen Thalestris, we welcome you to our camp. Your arrival honors us. Thalestris dismounted with fluid grace, her movements those of a seasoned warrior. She strode towards Alexander, her gaze never wavering. When she spoke, her voice was rich and commanding. King Alexander, your reputation precedes you. We have come with a purpose that may surprise you. Alexander arched an eyebrow, intrigued. And what purpose might that be, Your Majesty? Thalestris stood tall, her chin lifted proudly. I seek to bear your child. Our union would create a warrior unparalleled in history, combining your strategic genius with the strength of the Amazons. A ripple of shock ran through the assembled Macedonians. Alexander's advisors exchanged scandalized glances, while some of the soldiers struggled to hide their grins. Alexander himself was momentarily taken aback. He studied Thalestris's face, searching for any sign of jest. Finding none, he allowed a small smile to play at the corners of his mouth. An intriguing proposition, I must admit, it's not every day I receive such a direct request. Thalestris's expression remained serious. This is no mere personal desire. It is a matter of ensuring the future of my people. The child of our union would be a bridge between our worlds, a leader capable of greatness beyond measure. Chapter 3. Alexander gestured for Thalestris to join him at a nearby table set under a canopy, away from the curious eyes of their soldiers. Queen Thalestris was a vision of unparalleled beauty, a striking combination of fierce strength and effortless grace. Her muscles, honed from years of battle, were perfectly sculpted, yet her body retained a feminine elegance that seemed almost ethereal. Her face was a masterpiece of symmetry, with high cheekbones that framed piercing eyes, dark and intense, filled with intelligence and the wild spirit of the untamed lands. Long, raven-black hair cascaded down her back in thick waves, flowing freely like a river of midnight, catching the wind as she moved. Her lips, full and inviting, held a subtle smirk that hinted at both wisdom and sensuality, as if she knew the effect she had on those who gazed upon her. The two leaders took their seats, facing each other across a spread of maps and scrolls. Thalestris broke the silence first, her voice firm but not unkind. "You speak of uniting the world. Yet I see only lands ravaged by war and people forced to bow to your will." Alexander leaned back, studying her. "Conquest is but a means to an end. Through it, I spread the light of Greek civilization, our art, our philosophy, our knowledge. Brute force and cultural imposition," she countered, "do not equate to harmony. My people live with the land, not above it. We fight only to defend our freedom, never to impose our will on others." "And what of those who would threaten your freedom?" Alexander's eyes gleamed with interest. "Do you not seek to preempt such threats by extending your influence?" "We do not seek to dominate. Our strength lies in our independence, in the respect we hold for nature and for each other. We live in balance, while your empire stretches itself thin, constantly needing more to sustain itself." Alexander's fingers drummed lightly on the table. "A noble ideal, but impractical on a larger scale. Unity under one rule brings stability, an end to the chaos of warring states. It allows for the flourishing of ideas, trade, and culture. Or the erosion of diversity," Thalestris replied. "You speak of progress, but at what cost? Do the people you conquer truly benefit, or do they merely become cogs in the machinery of your empire?" He leaned forward, his expression intense. "They gain security, infrastructure, and the wisdom of centuries. They become part of something greater than themselves, a legacy that will endure beyond any single lifetime." Thalestris met his intensity with calm resolve. A legacy built on the backs of the subjugated is a fragile one. True strength comes from respect and mutual benefit, not from fear and dominance. Alexander's lips curved into a thoughtful smile. "You challenge my beliefs. It's rare to find someone who speaks so plainly to me. Your independence is admirable, but is it sustainable in the face of a world that is constantly changing?" She tilted her head slightly, eyes sharp. "Perhaps it's not the world that needs to change, but the way we lead it. Leadership is not about control, it's about guiding and protecting. Can you say that your conquests truly guide and protect, or do they merely expand your reach?" Alexander's silence spoke volumes. For a moment, the two leaders simply regarded each other, the tension between them palpable. Each sought to understand the other, not just as a rival, but as a potential ally. Chapter 4. Later that evening, the soft glow of lanterns bathed Alexander's tent in a warm light. The sounds of the camp outside faded into a distant murmur. Alexander sat at a small wooden table, a goblet of wine in his hand, deep in thought. The flap of the tent rustled, and Thalestris stepped inside, her presence commanding even in the intimate setting. Her armor, though practical and battle-worn, was molded to her body, highlighting her curves in all the right places. It hugged her waist, flaring out at the hips, and revealed just enough of her toned legs and arms to remind any onlooker of the raw power she possessed. Despite the warrior attire, her movements remained fluid, almost hypnotic, as if every gesture was part of a delicate dance. Thalestris carried herself with an undeniable sensuality, a force of nature who was both alluring and untouchable. The air around her seemed to crackle with a magnetic energy, drawing in those who dared to look closer, only to be reminded of the dangerous power that lay just beneath the surface. She was a queen, a warrior, and a woman of unmatched allure, her beauty as captivating as her strength was intimidating. "Join me," Alexander gestured to the seat opposite him. "We have much to discuss." Thalestris settled into the chair, her eyes scanning the room before meeting his. "Indeed. The matters between us go beyond mere politics and war." Alexander nodded, setting his goblet down. "You spoke earlier of harmony and balance. Tell me more about your people. What drives the Amazons?" A shadow crossed her face, and for a moment, her usual stoic demeanor softened. "We are warriors, yes, but we are also mothers, sisters, and daughters. Our way of life is rooted in the land and in each other." But she paused, the weight of her next words hanging heavy. "Our numbers are dwindling." Alexander's brows furrowed. "Dwindling? How so?" "The Amazons are a proud people," she began, her voice tinged with a rare vulnerability. "But pride alone cannot sustain us. We have faced countless battles, and while we have emerged victorious, the cost has been great. Our ranks thin, and fewer children are born each year. We need new bloodlines to survive, to continue our legacy." Alexander leaned forward, his interest piqued. "And you believe a child with me will change that?" Thalestris met his gaze. "Our union would symbolize strength and unity. It would breathe new life into my people, offering them hope and a future." Silence settled between them, the gravity of her revelation sinking in. Alexander's mind raced, contemplating the implications. He took a deep breath, his own fears surfacing. "I understand your plight," he said, his voice softer. "I too fear for my legacy. I have conquered lands, built cities, and yet there are moments when I wonder if any of it will endure. What if my name is forgotten, my achievements reduced to mere footnotes in history?" Thalestris's expression softened, a hint of empathy in her eyes. "Legacy is not just about the battles won or the lands conquered. It is about the lives we touch, the changes we inspire." A subtle tension hung in the air, a mix of mutual respect and unspoken attraction. Yet both leaders remained composed, their strategic minds guiding their actions. "My request," Thalestris continued, her tone steady, "is strategic. It is not born of personal desire, but of necessity. Our union would be a powerful symbol, but it must be understood for what it is." Alexander nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "I appreciate your honesty. Our motivations may differ, but perhaps there is a way for both our legacies to endure." They sat in silence for a moment longer, each contemplating the weight of their decisions and the potential paths ahead. As the night wore on, the tension between Alexander and Thalestris grew more palpable. The fire crackled softly, casting flickering shadows across the tent. Alexander's heart raced as he looked into Thalestris's eyes, seeing a mix of determination and desire. Chapter 5. Thalestris rose from her seat, her expression resolute. "Alexander, I propose a challenge." Alexander's curiosity piqued. "A challenge?" "Yes," she confirmed, stepping closer. "A duel. Not to the death, but to test our strength, skill, and willpower. If you can best me in combat, I will submit to your terms." Alexander's eyes sparkled with interest. "And if you best me?" Thalestris's lips curved into a slight smile. "Then perhaps you will consider the merit in our ways and what I have proposed." The next morning, the camp buzzed with anticipation. Word of the duel spread quickly, drawing soldiers and Amazons alike to the makeshift arena outside the camp. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a golden hue over the gathering. Alexander stood in the center of the arena, his armor gleaming. Thalestris approached, her own armor reflecting the light. She held her sword with a confidence that matched Alexander's. The crowd hushed as the two leaders faced each other, the weight of their nation's expectations heavy upon them. They nodded in mutual respect, and the duel began. Thalestris moved first, her strikes swift and precise. Alexander parried, countering with equal skill. Their swords clashed, the sound of metal ringing through the air. Each movement was calculated, a dance of power and finesse. Thalestris feinted left, then struck right, forcing Alexander to step back. He responded with a sweeping arc of his blade, which she narrowly dodged. They circled each other, eyes locked, searching for weaknesses. Minutes turned into an eternity as the duel raged on. The crowd watched in rapt silence, witnessing the embodiment of two worlds colliding. Sweat glistened on their brows, muscles straining, but neither showed signs of yielding. With a powerful thrust, Thalestris drove Alexander back, her blade inches from his chest. He twisted away, using the momentum to launch a counterattack. Their swords locked, faces mere inches apart. "You fight well." They broke apart, circling once more. Each strike, each parry, spoke volumes of their determination and skill. The duel was no longer just a test of strength, it was a testament to their ideologies and the respect they had earned from one another. Finally, with a last, powerful clash, they both stumbled back, exhausted. Neither could claim victory, yet neither admitted defeat. They stood, battered but equal, their mutual respect evident in their eyes. The crowd erupted in applause, recognizing the significance of the moment. Alexander and Thalestris sheathed their swords, acknowledging the draw with a nod. In that instant, the ideological and cultural clash between them seemed less insurmountable. They had proven themselves as equals, warriors bound by a shared understanding of strength and honor. Chapter 6. The duel had left an indelible mark on Alexander. As he retreated to his tent, the cheers of the crowd still echoed in his ears, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He admired Thalestris's strength and leadership. She was unlike anyone he had ever faced, a formidable warrior with a vision as unyielding as his own. He sat alone, the tent's canvas flapping softly in the evening breeze. His eyes traced the patterns of the maps laid out before him, but his mind was elsewhere. Thalestris's proposition lingered. Could fathering a child with her bind their worlds together in a way no alliance could? Or would it tether him to responsibilities that might divert him from his grander ambitions? Hephaestion entered, his presence a familiar comfort. "You look troubled." "I am," Alexander admitted, his voice heavy with contemplation. "Thalestris is unlike anyone I've ever met. Her request, it's not just about the child. It's about uniting two worlds, two ways of life." Hephaestion nodded, understanding the weight of the decision. "But does it align with your vision for your empire? Would it enhance your legacy or distract from it?" Alexander sighed, the question hanging in the air. "That's what I must determine." Meanwhile, Thalestris found solace by the river, the gentle flow of water calming her restless thoughts. Queen Thalestris stood at the river's edge, the evening sun casting a golden glow across the landscape as the water shimmered beneath its rays. With a graceful, fluid movement, she let her armor slip from her body, revealing her sculpted figure in its full glory. Her muscles rippled subtly beneath her smooth, sun-kissed skin. She stepped into the cool, clear water, its gentle current swirling around her ankles before she waded deeper. The river embraced her as she submerged herself, the liquid reflecting the soft light of the fading day, wrapping her in a glistening, almost otherworldly aura. Her long raven hair floated around her like a dark halo, catching the water's light as it framed her face. As she sank into the river's cool embrace, her sharp, intense eyes softened, revealing a rare moment of vulnerability and serenity. She tilted her head back, allowing the water to cascade over her shoulders, trickling down her strong back and the curves of her body. The river's touch was both a cleansing ritual and a moment of quiet solace, a rare reprieve from the constant demands of battle and leadership. Her movements were slow, almost hypnotic, as she ran her hands through her hair, lifting it from the water before letting it fall back down in a wet, shimmering cascade. She had always been certain of her purpose, her people's way of life. But Alexander had stirred something within her, a possibility she hadn't considered before. Could a union with him truly benefit the Amazons? Or would it chain them to a man's empire, diluting their independence and unique culture? She watched the water ripple, reflecting the sky above, much like her thoughts mirrored the uncertainty within her. One of her warriors approached, breaking her reverie. "Queen Thalestris, what will you do?" Thalestris looked up, her gaze steady. "I must weigh our traditions against the potential of this union. Alexander is a man of great vision, but our people have thrived without the influence of men. It is a difficult decision." The warrior nodded, respect and concern mingling in her eyes. "Whatever you decide, we stand with you." Back in his tent, Alexander reached a decision. He summoned Thalestris, the tension between them now laced with mutual respect. She arrived, her demeanor as composed as ever, though her eyes held a glint of curiosity. "Thalestris," Alexander began, "I have given much thought to your proposal. You are a remarkable leader, and our duel proved our strengths are matched. But I believe there is another way for our peoples to unite." Thalestris raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What do you propose, Alexander?" "An alliance," he replied, his voice firm. "Instead of fathering a child, let us coexist peacefully. Your people retain their autonomy, and I will not seek to conquer them. In return, we support each other. If the Amazons ever need protection, my empire will stand by you." Thalestris considered his words, the weight of his offer settling over her. It was a compromise, one that respected her people's independence while forging a bond of mutual respect and support. "You propose a partnership of equals," she said, a note of approval in her tone. "Yes," Alexander affirmed. "Together, we can achieve greatness without sacrificing what makes us unique." Thalestris extended her hand, a gesture of agreement. "Very well. We shall forge this alliance, and our peoples will stand stronger for it." As their hands clasped, the seeds of a new era were sown, one built on respect and shared strength. Chapter 7. The camp buzzed with the preparations for departure. Thalestris, standing tall and resolute, exchanged a final look with Alexander. The decision they had reached the night before echoed in their minds, a pact of mutual respect and support. "You have my word," Thalestris said. "Our alliance will be honored." Alexander nodded, his piercing eyes meeting hers. "And you have mine. May our peoples grow stronger together." Without another word, Thalestris turned, signaling her warriors to mount their horses. The Amazon warriors moved with practiced grace, their movements synchronized, embodying the strength and unity that defined their people. Alexander watched as Thalestris led her warriors away from the camp. The morning sun cast long shadows, the figures of the Amazons becoming silhouettes against the horizon. A sense of mutual admiration hung in the air. Neither had fully won the other over, yet they both respected the strength and resolve each possessed. As the last of the Amazons disappeared from view, Alexander remained rooted to the spot, his thoughts drifting. He had always believed that his legacy would be built on the vast territories he conquered, the cities he founded, and the battles he won. But watching Thalestris and her warriors, he felt a flicker of doubt. Was there more to leadership than conquest? Could legacies be forged on the anvil of mutual respect rather than the sword of domination? The question lingered, unsettling yet enlightening. Hephaestion approached, sensing his friend's introspection. "They are formidable, those Amazons," he remarked, his eyes following the distant figures. "Indeed," Alexander replied, still deep in thought. "They have shown me that strength lies not just in conquest, but in the respect we earn from others." Hephaestion studied Alexander, noting the rare moment of vulnerability. "Do you think this alliance will change anything?" "Perhaps," Alexander mused. "Perhaps it will teach us that there is more to empire building than subjugation. It might show us that true power comes from unity, not division." Meanwhile, Thalestris rode at the head of her warriors, the landscape unfurling before her like a blank canvas. She couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter had sown the seeds of change, both for her people and for Alexander. Yet, she remained wary. Alexander, for all his grandeur and vision, was still a man driven by ambition. Would this alliance truly alter the course of history for her people, or would it be another chapter in the relentless march of conquest? The question gnawed at her, but she pushed it aside. For now, they had a pact, a fragile yet hopeful bridge between their worlds. As they rode into the unknown, Thalestris's thoughts were a mix of hope and caution. She knew that the future was uncertain, but she also knew that her people were resilient. Whatever came next, they would face it with the same strength and unity that had defined them for generations. And so, with the horizon stretching endlessly before them, Thalestris and her warriors ventured onward, the echoes of their encounter with Alexander a quiet yet persistent reminder of the possibilities that lay ahead. Chapter 8. Alexander stood on a hill overlooking his vast camp, his gaze fixed on the horizon where Thalestris and her warriors had vanished. The encounter with the Amazon Queen had left a mark on him, one that he couldn't easily shake. He felt the weight of her words, her strength, and the proposition that had been as bold as any challenge he had faced in battle. "Alexander," Hephaestion called, approaching with a map in hand. "The scouts report that the Persian forces are regrouping to the east. We need to decide our next move." Alexander turned to his trusted friend, the resolve in his eyes unmistakable. "We continue as planned. Persia awaits, and our legacy must be secured." Hephaestion nodded, sensing the familiar determination in Alexander's voice, yet noticing a subtle change. "As you command." The Macedonian army prepared for the next leg of their campaign, the soldiers bustling with the energy and discipline that had made them invincible. Alexander walked among them, his presence a source of inspiration. Yet, as he moved, his mind drifted back to the duel with Thalestris, the clash of their swords, and the fierce intelligence in her eyes. In the weeks that followed, Alexander led his army through fierce battles and strategic conquests, each victory adding to his empire's expanse. But in the quiet moments, when the clamor of war subsided, he found himself pondering Thalestris's words. Her vision of a world united not by force but by mutual respect and understanding lingered in his thoughts. Meanwhile, Thalestris returned to her people, her heart heavy with the knowledge that their encounter with Alexander might be the last. She led her warriors with the same strength and wisdom that had always defined her, but there was a new layer of introspection in her leadership. The possibility of a different future, one where their worlds could coexist, haunted her dreams. Years passed, and the legend of Alexander the Great grew, his name etched into history as one of the greatest conquerors. Yet those who knew him well noticed a change. His conquests, though relentless, were often tempered with moments of unexpected clemency, a nod to the lessons learned from the Amazon Queen. Thalestris, on the other hand, became a symbol of strength and resilience among her people. Her story, intertwined with Alexander's, was told around campfires and passed down through generations. Though they never met again, their brief alliance and the respect they held for each other left an indelible mark on their legacies. In the end, the question remained, did the future belong to those who conquered through sheer force, or to those who could find a way to coexist? Alexander and Thalestris's encounter hinted at the possibility of a different path, one where power and respect could forge a legacy greater than any empire built on war alone.